This might be the last time you'll ever afford a car. And that's not an exaggeration.
This is going to drive the auto industry, not the overall economy, strictly the auto industry, into a recession.
President Trump.
U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on all car and light truck imports into the country.
And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States.
How damaging are these auto tariffs likely to be?
We're hearing numbers that it could increase prices of cars from $3,000 to $15,000.
If you're thinking about buying a car right now, it's now. It's now.
This car market crash is just starting. People are finally starting to say no to these greedy dealerships and manufacturers who took full advantage.
In early 2024, things began to take a turn for the worse in America's automotive industry. People in the U.S. stopped buying cars. A survey from Edmunds in August that year found that 73% of Americans held off from purchasing new cars. Now, it's important to note that Americans can't afford not to have a car.
My whole life depended on it. It was going in and getting a car or not be able to take my kids to the medical appointments.
Many U.S. cities and suburbs are designed around cars only. But even so, car dealerships were struggling to sell in America. Dealership lots were consistently full of cars, yet hardly any customers ever walked through the doors. By October 2024, new vehicle inventory in the U.S. exceeded 3 million units, marking the highest level since the pandemic began. Even with major discounts and incentives, buyers remain unwilling to purchase cars. But why haven't Americans been buying any cars lately? Quite simply, they just couldn't afford them anymore. In just 5 years, cars shifted from everyday necessities to luxury goods for Americans. Cars once priced between $20,000 to $40,000 were suddenly selling for $50,000 to $70,000.
$64,000, man. Come on.
$98,000.
I want $90,000 for this bad boy.
But why didn't people buy used cars instead? Well, that's because the used car market was in even worse shape. 10-year-old commuter cars were being sold for $12,000 to $15,000. The price of new and used vehicles increased significantly faster than the average weekly earnings of Americans. According to the Market Watch report, you needed to make $100,000 a year to be able to afford a car comfortably, which means 60% of American households could not afford to buy a new car. Yet, people bought them anyway. Result?
And Americans are carrying a record amount of credit card debt.
According to a recent credit report, a record number of millennials and Gen Z are struggling with car payments and defaulting on car loans.
Auto loan delinquencies at an all-time high.
A massive $1.7 trillion car loan debt. Auto loans surpassed student loans as the second largest debt burden for U.S. consumers. Car prices and loan amounts climbed so high that buyers simply stopped showing up. As a result, the bubble that had formed was on the verge of bursting. The car market was expected to crash and buyers were holding out, waiting for prices to correct. But then...
Well, the 25% auto tariffs are set to take effect in just 2 days, and our next guest warns that it will drive up used car prices, forcing consumers to look for even older vehicles in an already challenging rate environment.
The Trump auto tariffs are considered to be the biggest inflationary event for the industry since the COVID pandemic. The supposed crash never happened, and experts believe that this might be the last chance to buy cars at these prices, even if they're not as cheap, because from here, it's only going to get worse.
Really in the market right now, I'd probably buy now because it's going to get worse.
American consumers are at a crossroads. Save for a possible recession or buy a car while deals last. So what should they do? Before we figure that out, it's even more important to understand, how do we get here in the first place? Why couldn't the car market get back to normal when it should have been so? How did shady dealership tactics disrupt the economics of purchasing a car? And most importantly, why were Americans buying absurdly overpriced cars they knew they couldn't afford? There was a time when buying a car actually made sense. Up until 2019, shoppers, especially middle-class families, felt confident that with enough research and negotiation, they could get a fair deal for their new car. That's because dealerships operated on relatively thin margins. They would frequently sell near invoice price and make profits via volume bonuses and add-on products. A classic, sell more to make more strategy. U.S. new vehicle sales hovered around 17 million units annually. Automakers were fixated on hitting these volume targets. 2019 saw record high discounts averaging $4,300 per vehicle, which was about 11% off MSRP. This kept the average transaction price around $38,000 to $39,000 in 2019. Many brands like Ford, Chevy, Toyota routinely had 60 to 90 days of supply on hand, and the brands often competed on who could offer the bigger rebate. The power was in the hands of the customer, giving them room to negotiate, and trust in dealers remained moderate. But all of this was about to change.
Death toll now has risen above that of the SARS outbreak 17 years ago.
We now have a name for the disease, COVID-19.
I was at a hospital the other night where I think there were actually a few coronavirus patients, and I shook hands with everybody.
When the pandemic first struck in March 2020, automakers like Ford, General Motors, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, and others temporarily halted production. By April 2020, this already resulted in 3 million fewer cars being manufactured globally. Lockdowns and stay-at-home orders led to a dramatic collapse in showroom visits and sales. In the second quarter of 2020, U.S. vehicle sales dropped approximately 33% compared to the same quarter in 2019. This downturn marked the beginning of a significant shift in the way cars would be priced moving forward. These are the average car price trends from 2019 to 2021. In just 2 years, prices jumped by $10,000, a significantly higher increase compared to previous trends. But this didn't happen just because the car companies wanted to recover their losses. There were 3 key factors behind the dramatic price surge, the first of which actually ignited the car market bubble. That was the semiconductor chip shortage.
To the major chip shortage hitting the new and used car industries, prices for both are on the rise, and that's if consumers can even find a vehicle.
Normally, there would be a car here, and it's so tight you'd have to walk sideways through it so we can get them all in.
During COVID, demand for laptops, gaming consoles, and other consumer electronics exploded due to the global shift to remote work and learning. This resulted in the shortage of semiconductor chips. Semiconductors are essential to modern vehicles because they serve as the electronic brains behind nearly every function a car performs. However, due to the shortages, the dealer inventories were stripped to the bone. Honda stock dropped by 83% from 346K in 2019 to 60K in 2021. In 2021, auto manufacturers produced 7.7 million fewer vehicles worldwide solely because of semiconductor shortages. This resulted in $210 billion in lost revenue. But the chip shortage wasn't the only reason for upcoming price hikes. Human behavior played a role too. With the death count soaring, mortality became real to people. Many felt if life is this unpredictable, why save for later? Why not enjoy it now? You only live once. Next, people spend more time online than ever before. Social media became the main stage for expressing identity. Cars became one of the biggest flex purchases, especially for those who got lucky with crypto, stocks, or pandemic stimulus money.
What color is your Bugatti?
The combination of YOLO and cloud culture spiked up the demand so much that people didn't mind overpaying for a Honda Civic for $70,000.
This is crazy. Who is spending almost $70,000 on a Honda Civic?
Only because they were a limited edition color. And this happened with all of them. Trucks, SUVs, hatchbacks, sedans, even base model trims saw huge markups. These limited editions were seen as investments.
Chad Kane says you can even get 10 to 15% more depending on the type of vehicle that you have.
You might even be getting a better deal than you were before because the vehicle that you're driving might be in more demand.
But it would still be all right if the ones who were buying it were the ones who could afford it. They were not. Which brings us to the third reason, stimulus money. By late 2020, Americans flocked back to dealership.
Well, the economists apparently got it wrong. They did not expect, with so many people losing their jobs, that a lot of people would be out buying cars.
They started buying cars at a pace faster than dealerships could replenish inventory. But how? The government. During COVID, when thousands of businesses were forced to shut down, millions of jobs were lost and 70% of GDP plummeted. So to just keep the economy flowing, government issued stimulus checks. The stimulus was designed to put money directly into people's hands so they'd keep spending money to keep the economy afloat. More spending equals more revenue for businesses, equals more jobs, equals faster recovery. With travel and entertainment shut down, a segment of consumers spent this money into big purchases like cars.
A friend reaches out to you on Facebook telling you about free money from the government. It might pique your interest, right?
This excess demand gave the opportunity to automakers and car dealerships to exploit their customers like never before. And the consumers were not ready for what was coming next. 2 years after the pandemic, the demand for cars began to normalize. Average new car prices dropped from $46,000 in early 2022. But this drop was way too less than what it should have been as per the normal decade-long trends. And that's because automakers realized that the old model of overproducing and then discounting wasn't the only path. There was a better way to book profit. Keep inventories lean.
It's a very, very different experience. You're picking from a pool of 50 where you used to picking up from a pool of 100.
The automakers intentionally caused scarcity, providing dealership cars just enough to keep the demand always high. This was a major strategic shift. Profit per vehicle took priority over total sales volume.
It's really surreal being down at this storage lot and it just being completely empty. I mean, look at this. It's crazy. It's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it.
We saw evidence of this in 2023. Even as semiconductor chips became more available and production resumed, average new car prices remained near record highs. Other than this, they made a pivot to prioritize building their most profitable models. For example, industry data showed that the sedan production was deprioritized. Even economy cars like Honda Civics or Toyota Corollas were harder to find by late 2021. The immediate effect was automakers maintained or even grew profit per vehicle, but the affordable end of the market was neglected, an important consequence for consumers. Automaker financial results in 2021 and 2022 were surprisingly strong given the lower volumes. Many companies posted record or near record earnings, but people didn't have this much money to buy cars. And that's exactly how they fell into the auto loan debt trap.
This is a long list of payments you had made to Exeter.
In the 4 years after she took out her loan, Jessica Patterson received 5 extensions, but still owed more than $12,000.
There is no way an average US citizen could buy cars this expensive. So to keep monthly payments manageable on these inflated prices, dealers and lenders leaned heavily into longer-term loans and creative financing. Car financing is the process of borrowing money to buy a vehicle, typically through a loan or a lease, and repaying it over time.
Concern is there's something called a subprime auto loan, which is a loan that is extended to people with FICO scores or credit scores below a certain amount.
Everyone is approved at Buyers Auto Sales, regardless of your credit.
Even if this is my trade-in?
Approved.
Even if I'm self-employed?
Approved.
Even if we have 2 repossessions, a foreclosure, and a bankruptcy?
Everyone is approved.
Dealerships and auto lenders targeted subprime borrowers with poor credit, unstable income, no down payment, and less financially knowledgeable individuals, and tied them with long-term loans with 14 to 25% APR. For comparison, before 2019, buyers would get to enjoy cash rebates, 0% APR deals, and often paid below sticker price. A family could walk away paying just under $34,000 for a car. Just 2 years later, that same car averaged over $45,000. The buyers lost the power to negotiate. In economics, this is known as the principal-agent incentive misalignment. The dealer pays their salesperson bonuses based on how many loans and add-ons they sell, not on getting consumers the best deal. As a result, representatives push long-term high APR loans and pricey warranties to hit their targets, not to save you money. Nearly 1 in 5 new car purchases was financed with an 84-month loan spanning 7 years. Before 2020, even a 6-year loan was seen as lengthy. These loans had a side effect that not many people saw coming: the negative equity problem. Many cars ended up owing more on their car than it was worth.
You would have given Exeter a lot of money at this point. More money than maybe the car had even been worth.
And that's exactly what we figured too.
Cracks began to show in the auto debt boom. The average amount financed for a new vehicle reached $41,500 in late 2024. While buyers were being exploited in the new car market, they weren't being spared in the used ones either. The used car market went on a wild ride, mirroring the new car chaos. When new vehicle supply dried up, buyers flooded into used vehicles, causing used car prices to skyrocket at the fastest rate on record. But little did dealerships and automakers know that these shady tactics were going to backfire on them. By late 2023 and into 2024, the supply side of the new car market finally improved dramatically. Factories ramped up as chip shortages eased. By early 2024, many dealerships were receiving inventory at a pace not seen in years. The total new vehicle inventory in the US topped 3.04 million units, the highest since before the pandemic. The pressure to act now or miss out faded away. In theory, this shift could imply a buyer's market or at least return to normal bargaining dynamics. But this never happened. Despite the inventory recovery, vehicle prices remain near record levels. Instead of cutting down the MSRP, automakers provided heavy discounts.
Every major domestic manufacturer, and guess what I found? Huge discounts. Over at Ram, over $30,000 off on a Ram 1500. But guess what? No one wants to buy it. It's unreliable, it has issues after issues, and it's overpriced. At the end of the day, every manufacturer is so overpriced.
But this wasn't enough to heal exploited US consumers. Trust in dealerships eroded long ago. By 2024, consumers adopted a wait-and-see mindset. Some dealers reported that even popular models like Ford F-150 were sitting over 6 months without a buyer. In the EV market as well, Tesla Model 3 inventory tripled last year, showing that the demand isn't keeping up with the production. The market crash was bound to happen, but
I blame former presidents and past leaders who weren't doing their job. They let it happen, and they let it happen to an extent that nobody can even believe. That's why, effective at midnight, we will impose a 25% tariff on all foreign-made automobiles.
On April 3rd, President Trump imposed 25% tariffs on all cars being imported, and the same shall be imposed on the auto parts as well. While this step was taken to promote domestic automakers, this created a panic in the car market. Consumers started running back to dealerships to buy the cars. Why? Analysts estimate that these tariffs could hike up the vehicle prices by $5,000 to $10,000, with some models potentially seeking increases up to $20,000. Even the repairing costs and insurance premiums are expected to climb up. Meanwhile, on the other hand, President Trump recently offered some relief on his 25% tariffs after worries that they could hurt the US factories. This situation couldn't be more confusing than it is. The current market presents a dilemma for consumers: save for a possible recession or buy a vehicle at the best price now. So the only question remains, should you buy a car or not? Many experts do believe that prices might go up, so right now is the best time to purchase a car. But that should be when consumers were already planning to buy a car in the near future, can afford it, and have done enough research for themselves. While it is a subjective answer, here's what auto experts like Lauren Fix don't want you to do.
There's a lot of fear factor that the mainstream media is putting in people's minds, and it's not good for our business.
A recent survey reveals that many middle-class Americans are planning to buy cars as they fear the prices will go up. Americans are panicking, and dealerships are using this to their advantage by fear-mongering people, stating that this is the last time buyers will ever see a price this cheap, only to get rid of their existing lot. But here's the truth. Dealerships and automakers can't beat the basic economics of supply and demand. Many dealerships are sitting on months' worth of inventory, but the demand isn't keeping up. And they also can't afford to let cars sit and rot on their lots while buyers stay away. So if the demand isn't generated, they'll have to cut prices to survive, no matter what the tariffs are. No one really knows the future of the market, so it's best to take your time to do your own research. In your research, you might want to know if there will be a recession coming or not. Check out this video where we break down the anatomy of a recession, the key signs, common patterns, and practical steps that you can take to get through it. But before you watch that, don't forget to subscribe for more economic insights and business lessons. And comment down below what you think if the car prices go up due to the tariffs or the dealerships have to bear the brunt as they mark down the prices.